So a lot of things that people are saying about the conclusions they came to Otto Warburg's work, I think some of the conclusions are wrong, personally. And I can't find any real justification in there if you're looking at more variables in here. I certainly don't think Otto Warburg was implying that you should not be eating any vegetables. I don't think he was even implying that if you're a healthy person that there's anything wrong with fruit, because there is nothing wrong with fruit if it's organic. If you're a healthy person, if you know how, if you use it based on the requirements of your body. I don't agree with these people that are telling people off the cuff, without knowing anything about their activity level, that they can eat as much fruit, as their addictive nature will permit them to. I think that's totally erroneous. Anybody has any idea what's going on in science today, has any idea about hyperinsulinism, and you could laugh at that term. There was one young fellow that laughed at that term because he totally didn't have a clue. I don't think he really had a clue how important that really is. If you have a lot of sugar floating around in your blood and a lot of insulin floating around in your blood, you're going to have a tremendous amount of energy. You're going to be really hyper. You're going to think you're flying around on drugs. And if you're exercising every day, you're going to have a tremendous amount of energy too. Your body starts to break down because of, you're just abusing it and don't seem to realize it. And then any good scientists now talk about having the amount of insulin you have in your blood, how it's contributory to developing, over a period of time, developing different diseases. So we have to be realistic. We can't just accept information that comes out on the internet as being valid because it's on the internet, or some person raves about some personal anecdotal experience they had, and they think it's something that's going to apply to everybody, because it just doesn't true. We're all biochemical individuals. We all have a different chemistry. And if anybody's egotistical enough to think that everything they do is perfectly suited for everything that everybody else should be doing, well, I think they better reevaluate their motives and take a good look at what they're saying. I don't do things that way. I realize that everybody is an individual. I think everybody has to determine, what they're capable of doing in their lifestyle. What they're able to handle realistically over a period of time, and how they're going to handle it socially. What about finances? What about geographically? If somebody's living up in Alaska and it's freezing cold, I mean, you're just going to it's not a good idea to try to live on a fruitarian diet. You might be able to survive, but it's not a wise decision. There's no two ways about it. You can only eat a certain amount of dry fruit and nuts. You want to just try to live on dry fruit and nuts because they're more calorically dense. You're living in a cold climate. It's not a smart thing or a smart way to go here. So, getting back to Otto Warburg's work and what he said about normal respiration, where the human cell fuels itself by working off oxygen, and a cancer cell that thrives on fermentative non-oxidative respiration, where it's not utilizing oxygen, where a cancer cell, which is really a survivor cell, it's a mindless cell that's surviving. And what happens, it kind of runs amok where it's just thriving on fermentative, non-oxidative respiration, and the byproduct of that is lactic acid. And then the lactic acid is processed through your liver, and what it does, the same cycle keeps repeating itself over and over, and that's how some people that have cancer, they go into a starvation mode, and they end up with cachexia, which a lot of people that die of cancer don't really die of cancer. They actually die of 40% of the people actually die of starvation or cachexia, which there is a way that some people could try to help themselves here. So if you take a good look at this, when a cell drops down to a point where it starts to ferment, and that happens, I have my own ideas why that happens, which I'm going to get into, and it has a lot to do with disease and how we should deal with disease. I actually see this work in people I work with that are able to do it. And sometimes you have to be realistic. Sometimes people can't do it well enough to help themselves with their problems. It's strictly an educational thing. So what happens when the human body starts to fail, and the amount I believe that everybody has some cancer cells that are being kept under control by NK killer cells and white blood cells. It's just like playing a video game, and they're just going in and zapping the cancer cells, and you could be a very healthy person. But when you start losing the upper hand, your body starts losing the upper hand, and the cancer cells start to proliferate, and they start to utilize sugars or oxidative, fermentative, non-oxidative respiration more than more respiratory oxygen, then you're starting to have a problem. So if you don't do the right things at that point, then you get a cell that's utilizing both oxygen and fermentation. And again, what happens then when the cell gets to the point where it can't utilize oxygen, it can use very small amounts. You know, some people would say 20–25%, then that cell starts to work solely on fermentative, non-oxidative respiration, and you have a cancer cell, and it's very, very hard to get rid of that cell, and that's why scientists think that you have to kill a cancer cell, which the human body has that capability. How does the human body get back to that capability, which is very, very, very questionable? That's where lifestyle is a very, very big thing. We have to realize that the human body has this fabulous, and I believe God-given ability to correct its own problems and prevent disease. That's why I'm so big into prevention. My main message to people is try not to wait that you have a situation where you're in real trouble. That you have to get into a lifestyle of prevention, which works very well.